Hope you had a great break after that last section. All right, in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to start interacting with the shapes themselves. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look and see what the attributes are of these shapes. So we're going to go into the Elements tab, and in the Elements tab, we're going to go and look at that specific SVG. Oh, that's the wrong one. Inside of the div, we've got an SVG, and as you can see, it's got an X of 1, a Y of 1, this one, and it's got a width and a height, and it has a key of K1. And this one now has a K of K2. So that's cool. What we're going to do now is see if we can actually get those attributes and do something with them. And all we're going to try to do is to move them a little bit. And we don't have the functionality yet written to do that, but let's actually write the functionality for that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a quick update to index. We're going to clean this up a little bit. There's lots of stuff in there. We're going to delete the stuff that we don't need anymore. This guy we're going to comment out. We don't actually need that anymore. We're going to get rid of this. We don't need any of this anymore. But what we are going to do is we're going to grab a new variable, and that variable is going to be called keys. And again, that can be called anything we want. That's our variable. This one has to match what it's called. What are they called? Keys or key? Let's have a look again. Elements, we need to make it look big. And it was, where is it? There it is, key. So that should be key. And of course, singular. That would make sense. And then what we're going to do is if key, and this is just using a truthy, we're going to do a log of the key. All right, so now if we add a rectangle, we add that. Oh, let's look at the console. Not printing, not printing, not printing. Oh, there we go. So we're actually getting the console. And then the next thing we want to do is let's pretend we just want to move it by a little bit. So what we'd like to do then is we'd like to tell the panel, we want you to move key, and we want you to move it by 2, 5. That's what we want to do. How do we go about doing that? Well, the first thing that we should do is go into the test and update the test to make the test do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab, we're going to start a new test. There we go. We're going to grab this guy. Okay, and we're going to put a new shape on it. We're going to create a new rectangle. And look at this. Here's some of the code right there that we want right there. So we'll just copy it, put it in there. So we're creating the panel. We create a rectangle. Let's just, and it passes a key back. So let's just grab the key from this guy. And we're going to put this at 101, 102. And we don't care about what it expects this guy at all. We have the key. We probably are going to want to get the shape, but we'll do that later. Key. And we're just going to call that shape because we don't care what shape it is. We don't care about that guy right there. And as you can see, so yeah, we're going to ask that just a shape, singular. Oops. And there I'm doing it again. I know, I'm doing it again. I'm actually writing the test before I write the stub, but I've started. I'm committed. So what I want to do is I want to tell the panel, I want to do a move. I want to move key, whatever that might be, and and I want to move it by 3, 5. So 3 positive x and 3 positive y. Then I'm going to go to the panel. I'm going to get that shape that I should have moved, and it should now be at 104, 107. Now, that's not going to work because we haven't coded the move function. So let's go into the panel. Let's go into shapes, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into this rectangle. There we are, drawing. So we're going to go into drawing actually, and we're going to add a function right there, which is going to be move, and we're going to expect the key of the object to move and an x and a y, and a y, and it's going to, right now we're not going to return anything. So we're going to save this, and then we're going to run this, we're going to save that guy, and we're going to actually run. Now, oh, it didn't actually run any tests. Oh, I see what was wrong. So this is test drawing of move. Test. Move. Good. I'm going to just change that to move. And look at the tests. Again, the -T is the way to get just the ones that we want. And one test has failed, which is exactly what it should be. So that 2B 104, and what is it? It's actually 101. So what that means is that the move didn't do anything, which of course makes sense. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to go into shapes. And what this is going to do, this is actually going to go and get the element we want. So we have a function, there it is, get shapes. So we're going to say const shape is equal to this dot get shape, and we're going to pass it the key, and that should give us the shape. And then what we want to do is we want to actually delegate that responsibility. That's the word they generally use, delegate the responsibility. We're going to want to say, hey, shape, you move yourself by x and y. I'm going to give you the responsibility to move yourself. So once I found you, now you move yourself. And I'm going to save this. And so what this is immediately going to tell us is we need the ability of being able to do a move of a shape. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to here, and it might make sense that we actually put that in here. So we're going to go back. Before we do this, we're going to grab the creating of the triangle, which we tested up here. And we know that works now. We know that works, so we can copy that code. Oh, and look at that, we can copy that as well. Because what we've done is now we've delegated the responsibility from the panel to the shape itself. So what we need to do is we need to now test the function that we're going to put in. Okay, so shape.move, and we're going to move this by 5, 7, just to be a little different. And what we should expect x to be now is 6. And what we should expect y to be is 9. Now again, this will fail because again, I did not put my functions in here. So let's add my functions. Now, interestingly enough, I can add that to rectangle, or I can add that to shape. And if we're going to think a little further, let's actually put that in shape. So what we're going to say now is here, we're going to say move x, y. Oops. And the reason it makes more sense to put it into shape is because this is something we're going to want to do no matter what the shape is. So you have to think a little bit more about that kind of stuff. We've probably been putting too much stuff in rectangle itself, but when we go to do the other shapes, we'll probably move it. So then let's go and run this again. And we've added our new code in there, and we'll get one of these to fail. So this is going to fail, that's right, 6, and it says it's actually received 1, which makes sense. We actually didn't code the move to do anything. So I keep double clicking. Okay. What we're going to do in the move is we're going to say this dot x equal plus x, and we're going to do the same thing with y. Save that. Oops. Save that. Run it again. What's this? Is expected 6, received 5. Now, is there a mistake is it possible that we made a mistake in here? Oh yeah, it's the same thing, and I do this. I've done this before. What this should be is plus equal. Oh. And let's see if that makes the test go away. So what that does now is, where is the error now? So the error is on line 64. So what it's saying is this is 9 sy to be 9. And what it's saying, what is it saying? It's still 2. For some reason, this didn't get added. So let's have a look at our shape and see what the problem is. Y. Oh, look at that. Y. So it got away on me. My mouse got away on me. It was a little too fast when I was using my keys. All right, and so now that test passed. So if we look at that, that test actually passed. Now, what we're going to do is go back to our, I'm going to save this guy. We're going to go back to our index.this, to our index.javascript, and we're going to ask it to do the move. But what we're going to do, and again, if you write your tests properly, you can just copy and steal code right from it. And what we're going to do is we are going to load the key, okay, and we're going to get the shape from the panel based on the key. We're going to move it, and we're going to log it again. You know what we'll do? Rather than doing that, we'll just console log it directly. We don't need to save it in a variable. Okay, we're going to do before and an after. Alright, so let's add a rectangle. We're going to now press it, and let's look and see what it did. So we should be adding 2 and 5 to it. Oh man, look what it did. You treated it like a string, 2 and 15, but the problem is it actually didn't move the rectangle. So we've just identified about 3 or 4 different problems here. So let's have a look at the elements again. Remember how we looked at that before? So we're going to look at the elements, and so it should be 12, 15. So let's look at the SVG in drawings. Oh, there was just one. Oh, and look at this. The X is 1 and the Y is 1. So that's not getting set. So what we have a problem with now is we have our shadow object and we have our DOM object. So the shadow object is being changed, but the DOM object is not being changed. So there's 2 things that we've got wrong here. So let's fix that one first. Let's get the DOM object to be changed. So what we're going to do is go back into our editor, and let's enhance our tests now. That's the first thing we do. Let's enhance our tests. So what we're going to want to do, and again, I have a habit of trying to write my test first. I get excited and write my test first. So what I'd like to be able to do, I'd like to be able to go to shape and say, hey, shape, give me your element. And then I should be able to, const element is equal to shape.getElement. And then where can I check the x's and y's? I'm just going to be a little lazy. Where can I check the x's and y's of my, there we go. Oh no, it's a get attributes. I have to find a get attribute. So get attribute. There we go, right there. Nope, not those attributes. There we go. And we're just going to put them down there. And this is going to change to E1 or EL elements. And this is going to change to EL. Now again, we do our move, we check our shape, and then we get our element. Okay, now again, this isn't going to work at all because we haven't created the get element. We don't have a get element. And again, we go back to here, and should we put that on our shape object? Or should we in fact put that in our rectangle element? So, we see a problem. I see a problem. And here we are right now is we're creating this element and we're not saving this element. So let's learn another OO function called, all right, so let's create a get element in the shape and get it to do a little bit of our work. So what we're going to do, and again, our tests are going to save us to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this guy right here, and we're going to put that guy right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to return, and we're not going to call it rectangle anymore, we're going to call it shape. And so what we're going to do is we're going to call this guy shape. And if you notice at the end, we've got to put what we're creating. And so in this element, we're going to get, okay, and that returns the shape. And there we go. And now we can change this guy to go super get element, pass it the string, a rectangle. And this guy now can be const rectangle is equal to super that. Now again, the really cool part about this is if there happens to be a problem with something that we've done here, our tests are going to catch it. So that's beautiful. So what we've just done here is when we do a get element here, we're going to save this. All right. And what we're going to do is we're just going to save this. So this dot shape is equal to shape. All right, let's just run this and make sure that we haven't destroyed too much. Do everybody see where I'm going with this? Okay, that test still fails. And it's saying super, oh, look at this, brackets. That's not good. So that should be super dot. Right there should be super dot get element. Yeah, we have too many brackets there. And what we're doing is we're beginning to move the functionality up because as we do circles and squares and all the rest of it, we wanted some of that shape stuff to move up. So we're back to our error. So that's pretty cool. We're back down to 73. And if we look at it, it's saying, hey, it should be 101. This isn't quite right. So we'll go to 73. And there it is right there. And so if we've asked it, so this should be 104 and 107. So we didn't actually change this, and we should have changed it. So you see, if the shadow X is 104 and the shadow Y is 107, when we go and do a get attribute of X and Y, they should also be. Okay, and of course they won't be. Okay, we're going to just save this guy and rerun it. and it'll give an error, but at least the error would be a little bit better. So that should be, oh, it passed. How can that be possible? How can that be possible when we're getting the element? Oh, I know what the problem is, because we're getting the element. Okay, I'm going to show you this through. So according to this, if we go back to our index, this should work. It actually won't. But I'm going to show you why it doesn't. So we go to here, we go to rectangle, it creates a new rectangle there. Now, if I click this, it should move it, but it doesn't move it. So notice how this should be 1215. If I click it again, it goes from 1215 to 102, 122. So again, we still have our string problem. But if we actually look at the elements, okay, we got to get rid of that extra stuff so that we don't get that error message. But if we go inside the div and inside of here, look at that, it's still not changing the X and Y. So that is a problem. Whereas our test actually passed. If you notice, our test actually passed, but we still have a problem in the code. So how can we actually create that problem? Because we don't know what the problem is. If we can't create a test to fix it, we can't solve the problem. And the problem is quite simple once you understand it. We never asked it to draw. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually ask it to draw. So on the panel, once we describe the panel, we're going to ask it to draw, and then we're going to go through the process, because once it draws is when we start getting our shadow object and our DOM object. So I'm going to add it to there again, click that guy, and it still doesn't move, which we don't expect it to. But our test should fail now. More importantly, our test should fail. Because the last time we ran our test passed, so our functionality should work. Okay, let's have a look at that. Why does our test pass? Why does our test pass, but yet if we look at that, it doesn't? So let's have a look at this and see what we're doing wrong. So we create a rectangle at 101. Oh, we drew in the wrong place. No, that's fine. So this is really an interesting problem. So the problem comes down to this line right here. When it goes to shape and does get a get element, let's look and see what it's doing. It goes to shape, it executes a get element. It'll always run the one that overrides it. So as you can see, it is giving us a brand new element. But in the screen, it doesn't give us a brand new element. And so that's what the problem is. So what we're going to do is, in this case here, if it ever asks if we're going to get an element, we're going to say if this dot shape. So that means if we have a shape, it's going to return this dot shape. If there is no shape, it's going to actually go through and construct one. That should solve our problem. When I say solve our problem, that is going to give us an error in our test, which is what we really want, because this code is not working. All right, and so look at that. Finally, we get our error. So it's looking at 104 versus 101. All right, perfect. So now, when we do our move has to look to see whether there's a shape object, and if there's a shape object, it has to actually update the shape. So this guy right here, so this move, it updates the X and the Y, and if there is an element, it actually has to execute the function to change the DOM. So what we can actually do now is we can just do update element. All right, so what this guy does is the move, and then he does an update element. The element means it's the DOM element. But this can't be coded here, so we're going to put a method to be overridden. In this guy, we're just going to call it, we're going to call this dot update element. There we go. And here, we're going to just do a update element. And again, in JavaScript, you don't have to do it. So there we've just created a dummy method, which in JavaScript you don't have to do. This method is supposed to be overridden by the lower methods. And so in this guy, what we're going to do is we're going to update the element. Oh, let's just clean a little bit of this up. Oops. Okay, in the rectangle, get element, and then down here we're going to say update element. In rectangle, yeah, rectangle, we're going to say update element. And coincidentally, it just happens to be all the functionality we need here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this stuff. Put it right there. And over here, I can just say update element. And why can I do that so easily? Because again, we're updating our own state. And I actually have to go this dot update elements. Now, again, I can change the code fairly drastically like that because all of my tests are going to protect me if I do something silly. And believe me, I do lots silly. So let's have a look. Oh, and look, it's protecting myself. Rectangle is not defined. On line 40, update element, line 40. There we go, right there. Oh, right, rectangle. So what I have to do is I have to pass it. I have to actually pass it. This is the easiest way to do it. Update element. Yeah, there we go. And that would be this dot element. Yep, now let's have a look and see where it's failed. Rectangle dot set attribute, cannot read property, set attribute of undefined. Okay, and where did that come from? That is there. Okay, so that's in shapes. Now look, this comes from line 15. So let's see where line 15 is. Okay, so after a little bit of thought, we probably don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. What we want to do is something like if, put in brackets, this dot shape, because this could be called accidentally before any of the, and then the rectangle would be then this dot shape set attribute. Okay, so we're setting the attribute on the shape that we're pointing to. That's nice, it's lining it up for us. And again, we could, oops, what we could do is put it into a shorter name so we don't have to type it so much. I don't worry too much about that because the editor takes care of everything that we're doing. So, all right, so let's see if that works a little bit better. So we're only going to update the element if we have a shape. Okay, so this test passes. So now that the test passes, that means it's probably updating. So if we go over to here, we do a new rectangle, we click it. Oh my goodness, look at that, it moved. Oh, look at that, it moved. Now we go back to our next problem. So that's awesome, we've got it to move. So the next problem that we've got now is instead of adding it like a number, it's actually adding it like a string. So what we have to do is we have to create a test that actually causes that problem. So I might just update one of our, I might just update one of our existing tests. I'll just get rid of this. I might just update one of our existing tests to create the problem. So we want to create the problem. So what do you guys think it possibly is? What if we actually set that, we create the rectangle, and it was actually, let's see if that is going to cause us a problem. We'll run the test again. So we need to create a test that causes the same problem, or else we actually don't understand what the problem is. What's our 2b now? Look at this. There we go. So we don't know if this is the problem, but it's definitely a problem. So we know there's strings coming into it to create rectangle because all input is string. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the create, and we're going to try to deal with that. So let's just update. So the easiest place to do that is right there. So why don't we just say is number, and here, and see if that creates. And again, lots of confidence because we have our tests. I'm going to see if that breaks anything. It actually doesn't. It actually makes that test pass. So that's good. That was a failing test. We made it pass. So now let's create a rectangle. Now we're going to click it. Oh, look, it's moving just a teensy little bit and just a little increment like we want it. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty heavy section. We were fooling around with some objects, moving methods around, and I was actually showing you from a development perspective how you would create code. And again, I want you to make sure that you understand the whole concept of change a line, test it, change a line, test it. And if you've got good tests, you have lots of confidence that you can make changes in your code, and you know your tests are going to protect you. If I didn't have confidence in my tests, I wouldn't be making such drastic changes to code.